Hi, my name is Jennifer Huey and I'm here with Donald Blackburn. Today we'll be presenting the potential payback of a higher education in California.
Before we start, I'm going to go over some of the things we're going to talk about. First, we're going to go through a quick little disclaimer, and then talk about why we chose a project, and then we're going to dive into the actual analysis that we did about the cost of higher education versus the payback periods.
So first, as a disclaimer, we still encourage you to pursue what you enjoy, but here are the numbers. So we don't want to be discouraging anyone from not pursuing a degree in something that they really enjoy, but at the same time, we will be presenting the fastest payback majors in schools. So we will also be focusing on undergraduates, and we'll be choosing a representative example for each category.
Okay, a little bit of background information. The reason for this research is that we're concerned that in a more competitive job market, which is what we're facing after graduation, that not everyone is getting what he or she pays for in school. And also, rising education costs have made it harder and harder to get loans to pay for school, as well as making it more competitive to get into schools in the first place that aren't admitting as many students. We really feel that we want to do what is best for us and like the student body, and we think that this is figuring out how to maximize value through our higher education process.
And now we want to speak to you about the cost of higher education in California. So we decided to focus in California because, first off, that's where we're from, and because there's a high cost of living, there's job availability, and there's a lot of other variables, such as, like, California is home to many different industries. And so we'll be comparing CSUs, UCs, and private schools. According to the cost of different institutions, these payback periods will vary. So as you can see, for CSUs, fees and tuitions are $7,000. For University of California, so for UCs, that is about $13,000. And for private schools in California, the average cost is about $32,000.
Next, we're going to go into like the cost benefit of different majors at Cal Poly and Stanford, and we chose these two schools, one because we go to Cal Poly and it's a public school, and then also Stanford is a well-known private school, and both of these have a wide variety of undergrad majors to choose from, and they're both widely respected in industry. If we can zoom in onto Cal Poly, you can see here by college the median starting salaries and how much of a difference it makes which major you are at the school. And then next we're going to compare that to Stanford, and we see this one's a little bit different. You have to ignore the master's and PhD starting salaries, but you can compare the Stanford's numbers to Cal Poly's numbers, and you can see that the numbers actually are not that much different, and which raises the question of whether or not it's worth paying so much more to go to a private school when your average starting salary is not going to be a whole lot higher, and the payback period is going to be a lot longer on one of these private schools.
So next we'll speak to you about financial aid. So financial aid is really important for students entering college or currently in college because it's based on their parental income unless they're independent, and students fill out FAFSAs, and that goes for federal and state grants and loans. Large amount of grants and scholarships means shorter payback time, and larger amount of loans mean longer payback time for students. So students have to realize that budgets are getting tighter, and so they may have to take out higher interest loans from private banks in the near future. And if you're wondering what grants are actually the smartest way to cover college costs because they don't have to be repaid like a loan. They're simply cash awards you receive to pay for college as long as you meet their eligibility requirements. So a large number of UC students are awarded grants through a variety of programs, and that goes also for CSU students as well. During 2010-2011, less than 60% of all undergraduates who receive financial aid at CSU campus took out a student loan. And the average loan for the year for undergraduates who borrowed was $7,000 and $7,478. And it's also important to note that many students really choose to take on a part-time job to pay for some of their bills while they're at school because although tuition alone is a lot, you have to consider the fact of living expenses and eating and dining and books and all the other costs that college really entails.
Okay, and I'll also along with that, if financial aid is received during school, it is important that right afterward that you need to get a job, because after graduation the loans need to be repaid on time, and this can be a big issue if the job market is not cooperative. This is a big reason why you don't want to major in something that you're either not going to get a job in or it's going to be hard to get a job in, because those loans, the interest on those loans, even if you didn't pay interest while you're in school, the interest will pile up after the deadlines for them to be paid.
So we're going to look at 3 schools. So Cal Poly to start with as a CSU, and about 36.5% of full-time undergraduates at this school receive some kind of need-based financial aid, and the average need-based scholarship or grant award is $2,000, 969. Oh. And as you can see in the following graph, that there's a lot of students who actually apply for financial aid, and there's only 4% whose needs are fully met. But you also have to consider the fact that our tuition is $7,000. So in the next slide, we'll be looking at UCLA. UCLA is a UC, so you can see, and 56.1% of full-time undergrads receive some kind of need-based financial aid, and that average is about $16,659. And again, here is a table showing the needs of students who apply for financial aid and what they receive. And next we'll now be examining USC. So USC is a private school, and 42.3% of full-time undergrads receive some kind of need-based financial aid, and that average scholarship or grant award is $28,377. So although that number seems very high, you have to know that their tuition is actually $44,463.
Okay, so now we're going to go over the big analysis section, and which is potential earnings and payback period. And you'll see majors that have the fastest paybacks, and what this means is that like a lower potential payback means it would take longer to pay back the cost of your higher education. And some majors have higher starting salaries than others, and as a result can pay back loans faster. So next we're going to go into an article we read written by Mark Kantrowitz, who is a nationally recognized financial aid expert who has been called on several times to testify before Congress about student aid. And he has demonstrated that a bachelor's degree on average increases lifetime income by $1.2 million, as with compared to just a high school diploma.
$1 million.
$1 million, yes. And so this shows that it is important to get a college education, but what we want to look at is which college education is better than others. And so the payback period for a bachelor's degree is 11 years at public colleges based on median income, and 18 years at a private nonprofit college. And so you can see here that the payback period on a private education is a lot bigger, especially when you compare those pretty similar starting salaries. The payback period for minorities is 2 to 6 years shorter than it is for Caucasian students, and this is because a college degree conveys more of an improvement in annual income for minority students. And as you can see, students who pursue degrees in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics will end up earning much higher salaries than students who pursue degrees in art, music, history, or sociology. And so this means that students who attend more expensive colleges, switch majors, or take longer to finish school will accumulate a lot more debt. and that'll make the cost-benefit ratio of school much less favorable. And we kind of decided that a liberal arts degree may be like intellectually satisfying, but it just doesn't have the same payoff as the high technology fields. So as a good rule of thumb, students should not borrow more for their education than their expected starting salary after they graduate, and students who borrow more than twice their expected salary are at a very high risk of defaulting all their loans and going bankrupt, not having enough money for living expenses, blah, 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 blah. So there's a lot to be said about being able to repay your loans and having a good cost-benefit ratio to your education.
And Donald and I both are taking on summer internships, and we talked about it and we figured out that we're actually making very close to the same amount. So this summer we'll both be being paid $23 an hour and working for about 10 weeks. So if you assume that we have 40-hour work weeks before taxes, we'll be making $9,200. And we're going to assume that we have no deductions because we are both dependents of our parents. And yep, and so as you can see, we have done the appropriate taxes, so for federal and for state taxes. And by examining our net take-home income, this summer we will be making approximately $7,331. And we thought it was interesting because we could compare that to our tuition for 1 year at Cal Poly, which is $7,000 and $7,025. And as you can see from comparing these two numbers, we're making more in one summer than it costs for us to attend college for 1 year. So this just goes to show that our payback for a Cal Poly education in engineering is actually going to pay off pretty quickly. I mean, this doesn't include like our housing and our other necessities, but if we were just paying our tuition alone, tuition and fees, then we'd be very well off because we're actually making more than our tuition cost.
Okay, so in summary, according to the numbers, it is proven from what we've found that engineers across the board have a significant advantage over any other major when it comes to getting a job. The median salaries are a lot higher than any other major, and the job market is also increasing right now for most engineering majors. With this in mind, we've also found that there's not a significant gap between the starting salaries from public and private institutions, and because private universities cost a lot more, we found that getting a public education is much more cost effective, especially Cal Poly. And that pretty much sums it up for us. Thank you for listening, and talk to you later.